We're interrupting this program in order to begin our regularly scheduled broadcast. Thanks for watching the Lit TV Network.
My grandmother had a dream for me when I couldn't dream for myself.
Wow.
She was looking to build me up when I didn't even know in the 60s. I have just engaged with so many different type of people and so many different type of philosophies about life. And people, I will say one thing, people are predictably people. I always say, dogs bark and people.
Yeah.
The same three things. We want our lives to matter. We want our children to do better, and we want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And when you boil it down to that, if we could just focus on those three things, all this other stuff that we fight about, we wouldn't have time for.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. So you were in the military. You were doing doing defense work. Then you said you were doing a prosecution. You were a prosecutor.
I did prosecution. Then I was a commissioner for the appellate courts.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, there were 9 judges, and I was the only captain, and I got to write some opinions, and my job was to run the court to make sure that all the opinions got out on time, the judges had what they needed, and then in between I could do draft opinions for the Chief Judge O'Brien.
Okay, so that was in DC?
Yeah, that was the Air Force Court of Criminal Appeals.
Okay, cool. So you got to give opinions, read a lot of court cases, I'm sure. Yeah, and be able to determine based on the law. Okay, was this a valid finding? Those sorts of things, right?
Right. And what was interesting, the unknown benefit is we had counsel for the accused and counsel for the government all converging on the court, so I could hear both sides of the same issue.
Right.
And that is invaluable in coming to in learning how to listen to different opinions and learning how out of the different opinions, how can we come up with something that's consistent with the law? And if it has nothing to do with the law, how can we come up with a solution listening to both sides?
Yeah. That's wonderful. So you were on the appellate court. You had so many different assignments. I know. But after the appellate court, what did you do? What stands out that you want to share with us?
What stands out after the appellate courts is we went overseas. We took our children overseas. Okay. And we lived in Germany and then England. And I was the deputy staff judge advocate, which means I was the second in charge of the office. I actually got to close the base in Germany.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we came back to America, and I was at the JAG school where I was the Army calls them professors, but we taught law at the Air Force JAG school. And after the Air Force JAG school, I was counsel for the university.
Okay, awesome. Okay, before you go back into that, I don't want to. I want to make sure that the audience understands. You were the deputy SJA there. The SJA is. Like what in comparison to the
the SJA is the law. It's the senior counsel, the partner, the person who's responsible for any legal opinions that's issued on that installation.
Like a district attorney, right?
Right. It's like yes. And what that person says usually goes. And they give advice to the police officers. They give advice to all the different group commanders, section commanders, anyone that has a legal issue. We were responsible for providing them guidance.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now you have you've taught law. You've advised. You've been prosecutor, defender. You advised. You were at the appellate level. and then ran a legal office, helped to run the legal office. And then you said you're a professor and then Air University. What were you doing at Air University?
I was the general counsel, the deputy general counsel for a major university.
Okay. Awesome.
And we just made sure that we were in compliance with our accreditation and that all the different schools at the university had what they need. And I taught still. They still asked me to continue to teach, and I did because it was fun. Yeah. And after that, I was given my own office to run. I deployed twice, once to Croatia, once to the Middle East. And then I was given my own office in Texas.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I was the law. I provided advice. I gave advice to the police officers. I gave advice to all the different things, the entities on base, to make sure we were compliant with the law. I engaged with the local community. I made sure that the Air Force was compliant and a participant in the local community.
Yeah. And so that was Randolph Air Force Base, right? Yeah. I think that really is kind of where we connected.
Yeah.
You and I.
Every morning at 4:30, she woke me up so we could go run it.
It was it was pretty awesome. But we met before that, right?
Yeah, we met when I was at the general counsel at the deputy general counsel at Air University, and you were at the school for some reason, and someone brought you over. And I can't even, to this day, I can't remember that person that brought you over that wanted to make sure, because there were not that many I was a lieutenant colonel, and there were not that many senior Black officers. And this person insisted that you meet the senior Black officer. And she said, and by the way, she's sort of nice too. I'm like, okay.
I love it. I love it. But one of the things that I saw early on, even from that initial experience, is your belief in the importance of mentoring and coaching, helping to build the capacity of others, even at that time. Yeah.
Because I remember saying, because she's so funny. She's like, well, will you be my mentor? Yeah. And I'm like, I tell people straight, look, I will mentor you. I will coach you as long as you're doing the work.
Yeah.
If you're asking my opinion just to hear yourself talk, I got other people I can help.
Right.
And you said, I'm gonna be coachable.
Yeah. I was a little young captain at the time.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I was like, okay, then the game on. Let's do this.
Yeah, and now many years later, we're still connected, which is an amazing blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at Randolph is a huge base in San Antonio. You were the SJA of the base.
Yes. Yeah. Queen of the law.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome, actually, because then I remember I got the blessing of coming there in recruiting service. A unit that was on the base. So I was there. I wasn't working for you, but you were the law. And so we connected quite often. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like I said, 4:30 in the morning, running on the track.
Yeah, that was an important time. I learned a lot from you. Not just the law, but the idea and the importance of getting to know people, of pouring into people, but also of living a life that you can be proud of, living a life that you that honored who you were. And yeah,
that's all we can do. Life is happening right now. Right now. And a lot of times we act like life is going to happen after I lose 10 pounds, after the kids are grown, after I get the job of my dreams. Then I'll start living. Yeah. And tomorrow's not promised. So what if right now we could have it all? Yeah. Because you're going to have the troubles. That's just the nature. That's just the nature of it. People work so they won't have problems. Stop it. Yeah. You're going to have problems. It's how you deal with the problems. The circle of friends you have around you that empowers you to deal with the problems, and how you get up.
Yeah. I love that.
I'm like, problem number 1,040,000. Only 10 million more to go. Yes, I'm making it. Problems are the access to greatness. Yeah. To access to the life that you want to lead. Yeah. And to try to spend all your time to get rid of them, Yeah, I don't like problems at all. But I know the more I deal with them, I can live life now.
Yeah.
And not when I have no problems.
Right. Right. Because quickly life keeps going, right?
That's
Doesn't
right.
stop. Doesn't
That's
stop.
it does not stop while you're dealing with the problem, while you're mad at somebody for doing something 10 years ago, while you're looking at somebody cross-eyed because they said something rude to you. All of that. Stop it.
Yeah.
You don't even
I
know the
love
person's name, and you're mad at the coffee boy at the Starbucks because he didn't give you your latte suit enough. Stop it. Don't use your energy and your life force for stuff that doesn't matter, even if you could correct it. What if you got the coffee faster? To what end?
Yeah. 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 I love that. So San Antonio, SJA of Randolph Air Force Base. What else in your career? Bring us forward.
Yeah, well, and after that, I was promoted to full-bird colonel, and I moved to Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, where I was responsible for a geographical area. I was the chief of civil law, and I get to say what was going to happen in this geographical area. And then after that, I was the tech queen for the Air Force. Now, what's so funny about that is the generals were talking. They said, well, let her do it. If they can explain it to her, everybody will understand it. I'm like, I'm right here. I am the tech queen. I said, only if you guys call me the tech queen. And the general officers oftentimes will look at me and say, really? Really? Do you say everything that goes across your mind? I'm like, nope, because I get in trouble.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you were over civil law, so various things, anything constitutional,
the
contract law.
The hurricane response. We had a hurricane, and I was responsible for the response part of that, in terms of getting people what they needed. And then after that, I moved to the tech job, and after the tech job, I moved to one of the 8 major commands, Transcom.
Okay.
We transfer everything around the world. And my most exciting thing was, how do we get this whale? Like a whale. It's like an animal, like a big thing. Like, how do we get the whale from point A to point B? And I'm like, when they were telling me what the issue was, I was like, is this like a real whale? And they're like, yeah, it is. And we had to move it. And we did that. But we had to do it consistent with the law. And that's how I got involved, to make sure that we were consistent with. And after that, I retired. I came back home to Louisville, Kentucky. And my parents are still here. My family's still here. My kids at this point, one was in China and one was in Atlanta. So me and my husband moved to Louisville, Kentucky. And I just started looking around to see how I could make the biggest difference using the skill sets I had learned in the Air Force, make the biggest difference for Kentucky.
So Representative Stevenson, you have, at that point, you had been all over the world, Croatia, parts of several times in Africa. You had deployed, you had been in places all over America. You'd run offices. You'd done all of this. Why did you go back to Louisville?
You know, it's interesting. This is my hometown, and I actually love Kentucky. And one of the things that struck me, you know, in the military, people always say, military people, when you get together, it's like, where are you from? That's our number one question, because we're from everywhere.
Right.
And when I would say Kentucky, people would say one or two things. Oh, you don't look like a hillbilly.
Wow.
Okay. And then number two, they would say, they have Black people in Kentucky.
Wow.
So I started noticing that the perception of Kentucky wasn't as good as it could be. And yet, none of the other states had any solutions to the problems that America was facing. So I determined that when I completed my service to America, I was going to go home, take care of my parents, and make a difference for Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that's why we are here. I love Kentucky. We have the people, the heart, and everything to lead this nation.
Yeah.
And we will lead this nation in how we take care of families, how we take care of children, how we take care of the homeless, how we take care of people being hungry, the basics that God requires us to take care of the least of these. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're going to show the world how to do it.
I remember even early on in our relationship, while you were in the military, you quite often talked about Kentucky and how much you love the Kentucky Derby.
And
Yeah.
it was so ironic because I've never been.
Yeah.
I love the Kentucky Derby because it's such a signature, and it is so exciting when the whole city is happy about something together.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. It's a time when everybody comes together and that sort of thing.
We've been to a lot of Kentucky Derby parties, and
Yeah.
everybody's just happy.
Got it. So you returned to Kentucky. You were back at home. Family was there. What did you get into when? How was that transition? I guess from active military service to retiree, still being in service. If you get what I'm saying, go ahead.
I worked on a transition program because we need to transition military members back into the communities the same way we transitioned them into the military.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's not as strong as it could be. But people that have lived duty honor country have a lot to add. We just have to transition them and their families because their spouses have given up a lot so they can serve.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I worked on those projects. I joined a lot of boards. I looked around and asked a lot of questions about what is needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wouldn't be duplicating. We duplicate too much.
Mm-hmm.
And once I did all my research, it took me about a year or two just to be active and engaged, listening and learning, looking to see what's missing. I decided what was missing was that every person has a voice in our legislative process.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that people are that people are heard at the higher levels. Mm-hmm. So I ran to be a state rep for my district. And my first race, I lost by 300 votes.
Okay.
And then I said, and that was 2018. And then in 2020, the seat came open again. And I chose to run, although my friends around me would say they begged me because I was like, nope, not going to do it anymore. And and they used this line on me that I used to use on them all the time. Mm-hmm. Evil wins when good people do nothing. Mm-hmm. Dr. Martin Luther King.
And I'm sure we said it just that way. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I ran in 2020 and I had the honor and the privilege of winning and being sworn in as state rep for District 43. And the first week I was there was like a fire hose.
Right.
It was the first week of the pandemic.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And and what struck me was that all the bills that they had on the board for us to decide on were bills to strip the governor of his power and not to feed people in a pandemic, not to house people in a pandemic, not to keep people safe in a pandemic. It was more power play than people play.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And they said something, they wanted to take the governor's power and give it to the 100 legislators who couldn't decide if they wanted hamburger or fish for dip for lunch. And now they wanted to try to decide how to move this state forward when the only full-time legislator or the government official was the governor. We're all part-time.
Uh-huh. Got it. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to talk about that, and I leaned over to my seatmate and asked her, what button do I push? Because you got to push a button to talk. And so she was so gracious to me, Representative Patty Minter, who is an outstanding legislator. She was gracious. She pointed, and I got up and had my say. You don't strip a commander of his power while he's on the battlefield, winning the war, not losing the war, winning the war.
Good. Mm-hmm.
And that went around and around and around. And so from that point on, it was on. It's like, oh, people are paying attention and people just want to be heard.
Yeah.
So I've done that. And then about 2-3 years, a year ago, the governor asked me if I would, we were together a lot of things. And he first said, she's had the best start of any legislator I've seen, because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to fight for people.
Yeah.
And then about a year after that, he asked me if I would run to be on his ticket to be Attorney General for Kentucky, because they've never had a female Attorney General, and I have all the experience from the Air Force. So that experience is not an issue. I've done many parts of the job before, like, for example, advising on probable cause warrants, advising police officers, making sure that commanders, agencies have what they need to make the appropriate choice.
Yeah. Yeah. So you entered into politics.
I like to say not politics. Politics suck.
Okay.
But serving people is where the juice is.
Yeah.
If we could just pull the politics out of it,
okay,
I'd be a happy camper.
Okay. All right. So you jumped into serving as a legislator. And you mentioned that the governor and others talked about you had the best start of any legislator there in Kentucky that they've seen. One of the things you mentioned was your focus on people, not power. Your focus on people, not power. But one of the things also that I want you to talk about that I've seen as you have served is your not just your desire to, but your intentionality in reaching across the aisles.
Yeah. You know, I've been married for 40 years. And I like to tease them that my husband agrees with everything I say. And when I say that, they laugh because they know that's not true, because they're married. So I then say, why do you think we need to agree on everything? We're not even married.
Yeah.
What we can do is move Kentucky forward based on the items that we agree on.
Yeah.
Let's work on that.
Yeah.
And I work very hard not to be personal with people. One of the senior leaders said to me, why do my people like you? All you do is fuss at them. And I said two things. One, everybody wants to make a difference, and everybody wants a world that works for most people, all people. That's where I stand. And then number two, I don't talk about their mamas. I want to talk about feeding children. What can we do about this issue? Nothing else. I want to hear about your opinion on other things except this issue that's on the table. Let's resolve that, and then we can move somewhere. I look for common ground. And I'm going to operate from common ground. I'm not going to try to convince you of anything. And, you know, and I learned that from the military. When I was in the Middle East, the officers, the Kuwaiti officer asked the wing commander, could I go meet his mother? And I'm thinking, why? I'm not getting married.
Well, what's going on here?
Right. And, you know, they have a very patriarchal society. So he was talking to the wing commander. And the wing commander said yes. So we're driving in the desert and driving. All I can see is sand dunes. And when we came up over one, there was this little hut, a one-room hut. And we get in the hut, and this older woman who spoke no English had her best china on the table filled with tea because she'd never met an American before.
Wow.
And for an hour, we sat there having tea. I didn't speak Arabic. She didn't speak English. We just smiled at each other.
I love it.
And at the end, she got up and he said, my mom has a present for you. And her present was, she said, thank you in English.
Oh, yeah, that's so awesome.
And so I just know from that people just want their lives to matter. And my friends across the aisle want their lives to matter. And I just have to find the sweet spot.
Yeah, Yeah. And that's the thing of finding that commonality, that helps to build your capacity, build their capacity in knowing that they are valued, no matter the differences in opinions, that you value them, as human beings. And I think sometimes we get so far away from that, fussing about issues.
About issues
Yeah.
that most of the people, when you're fussing about them, you won't even engage with those issues. It's just something for you to talk about.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it's really ironic to me that we make choices for people that we don't know, and we feel like we can make them based on our opinion. No, that's not what we're hired to do.
Yeah. 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 I love that. So you're back there, in Kentucky. You're legislating. But one of the other things that I want to bring out, and we have a few more minutes here to share with each other, is that you continued, with your zeal for the law and your zeal for veterans. So could you share a little bit about what you did after retiring?
Yeah.
Along with it, with your service as a representative.
One of the things that struck me when I got back home is there is a group of people that don't have access to the legal system.
Mhm.
And these people don't qualify for legal aid.
Okay.
They make too much money to qualify for legal aid. And at the same time, they don't have enough money to hire a lawyer. So I opened up a nonprofit law firm so that I could serve the elderly, veterans, and working families.
Mhm.
And my it's a holistic law firm, meaning I don't just give you the law, I give you a number to call, but we want to look at how did you find yourself in this position where
Yeah.
a $5 legal issue became $1,000 legal issue.
Mhm.
And then we deal with that. And I say, don't come back with this same issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we build people's capacity to handle their lives. We look at how is it that you got here, and we let them talk their way through it
Yeah.
so they can identify what they need not to do.
Yeah. I love
And
it.
and everybody has to invest in their recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so important. Well, we are really literally running out of time here, so we won't be able to go into specifics about the your work with veterans, but I do know, and they can look at your website and that sort of things, of all of the different things that you do. Representative Stevenson, thank you so much for joining us on building your capacity. You've shared with us a bit about your life and the wonderful things that you do to help people build their capacity. Is there anything that you would like to say in closing?
Every life matters, and God gives each one of us a gift to share with the world. And to the extent that we live our best lives, we make this world better. I would encourage everybody to do something. Everybody can do something, not the same thing, but one thing, so that this world can be better and works for all people.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. We hope you will join us next Monday at 7:30 for Building Your Capacity with Reverend Dr. MLK Raven. Have a wonderful Christmas and Happy New Year.